Welcome to my series of YouTube video for the month of June. We are joined by Tove. This is the second part of Arise video. I have already done an introduction to what is Arise, and we have Tove today, who's the head of communication and relationships. So Tove, welcome to my YouTube channel.
Thank you very much. It's really wonderful to be here.
Thank you so much for joining and taking out time to join. So, Tove, I would like to know what exactly is Arise and when it was founded and your vision. I mean, what exactly do you do?
Absolutely. So Arise was founded actually not too long ago. It was 2015.
Okay.
And we were founded in London by two co-founders, John Stadzinski and Luke de Pulford. And it was at a time in the UK when the modern slavery framework, sort of the architecture, anti-slavery architecture, was first coming into being. And what these two founders realized, the second of which is our former director, the first founding director of Arise, they realized that although there was a lot of brilliant anti-slavery work going on in the UK, not a lot of it looked at the source, where these people were being trafficked from, where these enslaved individuals were coming from and what needed to be done to prevent the issue, as opposed to dealing with its harrowing and deeply damaging psychological consequences for victims. Yes. So they thought to themselves, right, we need to work at source, that's really important. And our vision will be a world without slavery in which the dignity of every person is respected. Then they wondered to themselves, how can we achieve this as best we can? And the answer, after much thought and travel and conversation, was that they could do this best by supporting local groups already embedded in these source communities who needed the resources, the infrastructure, training to do their work at a greater scale. So believing in the power of the local, believing that the people best placed to carry out this work are in these communities already and have the trust of the people around them, because it's very difficult to carry out effective humanitarian intervention without local trust.
I would like to know that which are the areas around the world where Arise exists?
Absolutely. So we exist in 4 countries at present. When we started in 2015, we launched in India. That was the first country of our programs. And from then it has grown. As we've grown as an organization and we've had more funds available to us, we've moved into more countries. And each country has been chosen on the basis of it being a big source country for human trafficking victims. Right. And when we say source country, we don't necessarily mean that it's a source of people to the UK or people to a specific place. We just mean that this is where a lot of trafficking victims come from. Maybe they're still there. Maybe they've moved from one village to a city. Maybe they're in their own village and have been trafficked in that context. Yeah. But India, Albania, the Philippines and Nigeria are the countries in which we operate for the reason of there being a high number of human trafficking victims.
All right. Just to break down onto the kind of work you're doing, I think you're working in human trafficking, but there are other areas also which you address as an organization. So do you want to tell our viewers a little bit more about what are those areas and why you chose to work in those areas as well?
Yes, sure. So we work to prevent human trafficking and exploitation, and that can come in a variety of forms. The forms that we work with depend very much from region to region. In India, you see a lot of forced marriage. You see a lot of child marriage, you see a lot of forced labor and child labor as well. In the Philippines, you see a huge amount of sex trafficking and child sex trafficking. So, it really depends on region to region what type of exploitation we're working to prevent. But what is interesting and important to mention is that no matter where you go, the issues are the same. The root causes are the same. The root causes of people being exploited are usually profound inequality, poverty, and a lack of viable alternatives to the false promises of human traffickers. So a trafficker will come into a community, say in Nigeria or India, and say, I've got this great opportunity in the city, in Saudi Arabia, in wherever. They'll come and promise an opportunity. And if a person does not have viable alternatives, even if they know the opportunity is risky, they are very likely to take the opportunity because they need to put food on the table. So our prevention work, the work we're doing in these contexts, doesn't differ very much depending on the type of trafficking. It's usually the same sort of approach that we take. And that approach combines skills training, providing education for children, income diversification for adults, providing infrastructural projects that need workers, and building schools and providing skills. And then on top of that, awareness. Awareness is something that people think is the way to prevent trafficking, and we disagree with that. We think it's the first building block in the prevention of human trafficking, because once people are aware, it's all well and good, but they still need the viable alternatives in order to make a living and survive. Yeah.
Sure. So my last question is there any sort of advice to the viewers, as part of the community wherever they are residing?
So I think one key thing would be to look local. Instead of supporting enormous, Western organizations who have a lot of bureaucracy and a big head office in the US or wherever it happens to be, think locally, see what your local community is doing, and definitely think towards the side of prevention, trying to prevent this from happening, as opposed to always looking at, the other side, which is the more kind of, how can I say, it's the side of anti-trafficking work that usually is in the headlights the most often, which is in rescue and rehabilitation, such important aspects. But not everything is a big chase from the police trying to find a trafficker. A lot of the best work happens at the very start of the process, building the resilience of communities. But as far as concrete steps that people can take, I would say awareness is key. We need people to be speaking about this issue and sharing about this issue. We need conversations to be being had about supply chains and personal accountability. Businesses will only be accountable when their profits are harmed. So when a story breaks about slavery in someone's supply chain, for example, a local clothes brand, we must make noise about it. You must share about it, we must write about it, and do our bit to show big business that you aren't personally going to be one of the consumers that continue to shop at their store. And just telling your friends about that, and it's really great that we live in a social media age where we are able to hold big brands to account through our own personal, stories and shares and conversations that we're having. So I'd say that that's a brilliant way to do it. And then if you want to take it a step further, become aware of your local political representatives and what they're doing or what they're pledging as far as trafficking is concerned, and maybe even write to them if you're willing.
Tove, thank you so much for joining us today. And I'm sure that the more awareness we spread, the more better for our community. So thank you so much for joining us. And Angela, thank you for setting up this wonderful meet with Tove. Do subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for joining us today.